most amazing top teners, I'm Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking about sport and death, which is a very tragic combination. Join us as we look at the craziest deaths to have ever happened during the Olympics. Yes, it is very sad, but it's also part of history, which is always worth reflecting on. Coming in at number 10, we have cyclist death from heat stroke in 1960. In 1960, the Summer Olympics were held in the blistering 40-degree heat in Rome. That's 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Many of the Olympians were unable to deal with the temperature but struggled on, resulting in a lot of heat exhaustion. This had perilous results for Danish cyclist Knut Jensen. After winning silver earlier on in the games, the Danish cycling team were participating in the 100-kilometer time trial. One of the four-man Danish team had already dropped out of the race due to sunstroke after the first lap, which meant that the other three cyclists just had to soldier on, including Jensen. They had to finish the race for fear of being disqualified. Unfortunately, Jensen began to feel dizzy and fainted. His two teammates tried desperately to clutch onto his t-shirt to stop him from falling, but eventually he collapsed and fractured his skull on the pavement, later dying in hospital. From the 60s to a modern tragedy, coming in at number 9, we have the luger death at the Vancouver Winter Olympics. 21-year-old luger Nodar Kamarita Shivali from the country of Georgia was killed on the morning of the Winter Olympics opening ceremony in Vancouver, casting a shadow over the whole proceedings. Nodar went off course during a training run and crashed into a support barrier next to the track. He crashed at 150 miles per hour. He was killed instantly. Controversially, his death was recorded on camera and the footage was released by the media. Coming in at number 8, we have a boxer with blood poisoning. In the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, a Romanian boxer by the name of Nicolae Berichet died 4 days after fighting in a featherweight boxing match with Ewald Seeberg. While the death from blood poisoning was hushed up, many say it was as a result of injuries sustained in the ring. Unfortunately, he never recovered and never returned to Romania, as he was buried right there in Berlin. Next up at number 7, we have a marathon runner who died covered in wax. Francisco Lazaro became the first person to die at an Olympics when he collapsed and died when running a marathon in the 1912 Stockholm Games. The Portuguese runner was 19 miles into the race when he collapsed from what many thought was heat exhaustion. It actually turns out back in those days when sunscreen really didn't exist, Lazaro had covered himself in a light layer of wax to protect himself from the UV rays. This unfortunately meant that sweat was being trapped in his body, causing a fatal body fluid electrolytic imbalance. Coming in at number 6, we have the death of an Olympian who was the only person to ever be awarded with a posthumous gold medal. We are talking about Alika Misakova. On arrival to the 1948 London Olympics, Aliska, part of the Czechoslovakian Olympic team, fell ill with polio. Her team, which also included her sister, went on to win gold at the Olympics, winning their medal on the day that she died in hospital. When the Czech flag was raised, her team wore black armbands. Luckily, in her memory, she was awarded a medal. Coming in at number 5, we have hundreds of protester deaths. This would be higher up on the list, but this event was 10 days before the Olympics, although it was definitely a politically motivated death in response to the games happening in 1968 in Mexico City. To cut a very long and complicated story short for the sake of this top 10, the Mexican government spent a lot of money on the Olympics, and many people simply weren't happy about it, amongst other things, especially as Mexico was financially suffering at the time. On the 2nd of October 1968, 10 days before the opening ceremony, 10,000 students headed to a peaceful protest at the Plaza de las Tres Culturas. The government wanted to stop the uprising, so shot what is reported to have been hundreds of students dead. It is actually really worth reading up on, as it's a lot more complicated than a paragraph in a top 10 video. Coming in at number 4, we have a terror plot in Atlanta. 5 years before 9/11, Olympic organizers failed to foil a terror plot by an insane right-wing Christian fundamentalist. Eric Robert Rudolph planted what was then the largest pipe bomb in American history at the Centennial Olympic Park at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. Luckily, an undercover detective by the name of Richard Jewell spotted the suspect package, which he identified as a possible bomb. The stadium was evacuated, but the nail bomb went off, wounding 111 people and killing 2. Now, this list isn't just about human tragedies. Sometimes animals have seriously suffered at the Olympics too. Coming in at number 3, 3, we have roasted doves. The Olympic opening and closing ceremonies are very keen on making big spectacles, which is exactly why at the 1988 Olympic opening ceremony, a flock of white doves were released to wow the crowd as well as the millions of people watching on television. Doves, a symbol of peace and hope, were supposed to be a symbol of hope and healing during the then turbulent South Korean era. Unfortunately, there was no hope or healing for these doves as they were released into the Seoul Olympic Stadium. Instead of flying off into the skyline as they were supposed to, they flew to sit on the Olympic cauldron. They thought this would be an excellent perch, but unfortunately it was a big mistake. The cauldron was lit and the doves burned alive. That's right, they burned alive live on television and in front of the tens of thousands of onlookers in the stadium. Horrible. Of course, one of the most shocking events in Olympic history has to be the 1972 Munich disaster. The 1972 Munich Olympics was supposed to be apolitical, even though there was still an East-West Germany divide. Let's face it, the last time Germany hosted the Olympics in 1936, Hitler was in charge, so it was a bit of a national embarrassment. The country really wanted a trouble-free, peaceful Olympics this time. Unfortunately, this was not to be. The games ended up being as far away from trouble and free of political turmoil as possible. 17 people lost their lives in a terrorist attack. In the 70s, tensions between Israelis and Palestinians were at an absolute peak. A group of 8 jihadis from Palestine, calling themselves Black September, created and carried out a terror plot to murder the Israeli Olympians. Black September donned tracksuits and scaled the wall with duffel bags filled with rifles and grenades. Sadly, they were helped out by 2 do-good athletes who thought they were helping out fellow competitors who'd been locked out after hours. Using intel from West Germany neo-Nazis, they snuck into the ground floor apartment of the Israeli wrestling team, taking them hostage with the hope of negotiating the release of prisoners in Israel. The Israeli government refused to negotiate with the terrorists, and a botched rescue from the German police went horribly wrong, resulting in the deaths of all 11 members of the wrestling team, 1 West German police officer, and 5 members of Black September. Finally, coming in at number 1 of our shocking Olympic deaths, this is very sad, we have an event that killed over 300 people, the 1964 Lima football riot. During an Olympic qualifying match against Peru and Argentina, a late Peruvian goal was disallowed, causing the home fans in Lima to riot. In response, police fired tear gas into the crowd, with many people trying to escape the stadium via a stairwell that led to the street. Unfortunately, at the bottom of the stairs, the exit to the street was blocked with a corrugated iron shutter, meaning that those at the front of the push were crushed against the shutters by those at the back. They couldn't see the blockage. This led to the loss of 318 lives, all in that fateful stairwell, as hundreds of people were crushed or suffocated to death. I don't know about you, but I feel really sad now, but I have to say it's really important to remember those who have died doing and enjoying what they love. When it comes to tragedies and attacks, it's very important to learn from history and just make sure that the mistakes that led to the deaths are not repeated ever again. So guys, do let me know what you thought to this video. Did I leave anything off this list? Would you like a part 2? Let me know in the comments section down below. For now, I'm Rebecca Felgate. I promise to make you a cheerier top 10 next time. For now, if you like this video and you found it interesting, educational, make sure you give it a good thumbs up, share it with a friend, and of course stay subscribed to Most Amazing Top 10 for more informative lists just like this coming at you twice daily.